That's right, you guys, it's trout season. Here we go, the first trout stocking of the year. Remember, you may get wet. Oh man, my camera's all messed up. Anyways, so in this video, you guys, we're gonna get you guys ready for trout season. All right, you guys, so in this video, we're gonna cover some of the topics and some of those frequently asked questions when it comes to trout fishing. So the first topic that we're gonna cover is why. Why fish for trout? What's this hype all about? And why people are willing to camp overnight, spend hours in line to fish for these trout out here at Santa Ana River Lakes. We'll also cover gear. We'll cover the rods and the reels that you'll use for the different methods that we're gonna show you later in the video. And lastly, we'll cover how to fish for trout, all the different methods. And in this particular section of the video, it'll be lengthy because we're gonna cover the different methods, your terminal tackle, the different baits that you'll be using. All right, so before we get in the guide, I know what you guys are saying. Who the heck are you? Anyways, my name is Rod, aka Pokedad. I've been coming here to Santa Ana River Lake since I was 6 years old. Was brought out here by my Uncle Steve. Thank you, Uncle Steve. And I'm just your average fisherman who was lucky enough last season to get myself one of these super trout that they stock out here at Santa Ana River Lakes. If you guys ever see me out here, stop by and say hi. Love meeting new people and talking fishing. And isn't that what fishing's all about? Meeting new people and have a good time? Can I get an amen? Let's get in this guide. Let's go and talk about why. Why would you want to fish for trout? What's all this hype about? And what makes these fish from Mount Lassen so special? Now, first off, these fish from Mount Lassen are raised in super clean, super cold, and super fresh spring water from the base of Mount Lassen. These trout spend multiple years in high velocity water, making them stronger, muscular, and hard fighting fish. Now, another reason why a lot of people fish for trout is that great taste. Now, if you've never filleted or cleaned a fish here at Santa Ana River Lakes from Mount Lassen, you'll notice that the meat there resembles that of salmon. All right, the main reason for that, you guys, is because these fish here from Mount Lassen are fed a high quality pellet along with an antioxidant called, now, before we all freak out, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this, but this is commonly extracted from an algae that is found in salmon, which is what gives it that pinkish color, but also it's also found in other creatures like your crawfish, your crabs, your lobster, your shrimp. So think about that before you start freaking out. But I think the main reason why we're all crazy about trout is because of the big boys. All right, guys, so let's talk about gear, specifically your rods and reels when you're out here trout fishing. Trout fishing, you're gonna have those active fishermen who like to toss out mini jigs, drop shots, spoons, spinners. Then you've got your bait and weight fishermen. And just like the name applies, you're tossing out your bait and you're waiting, whether you're tossing out night crawlers or mice tails, worms, or some power bait. Either way, we've got you covered. Let's go over the gear. All right, you guys, so this is my ideal rod when it comes to trout fishing. There's a lot of really good brands out there. I personally use Fenwick and Phoenix. There's a few characteristics when it comes to choosing a rod. First is gonna be your rod length. This particular one is a 7.6. For trout fishing, I'm usually recommending people a 7 to an 8 foot rod. The other characteristic is gonna be rod power. Now for trout fishing, it's almost 100% ultralight rods like this. The ultralight rods are ideal for these smaller fish and when you're tossing out these lighter lures. But at the same time, when you catch a big fish on these ultralight rods, it can be a lot of fun. So the last characteristic is going to be your rod's action. I typically recommend moderate fast to fast, and basically any of those fast variations are going to have a nice sensitive rod. And that's really important when you're fishing stuff like mini jigs or even drop shotting. Making contact with the bottom and kind of feeling that tip is really important. So moderate fast to fast is what I usually recommend when it comes to your rod's action. All right, guys, so let's go and talk about reels. Now, just like the rods, there's several different manufacturers out there that make really good reels at several different price points, so it fits basically anybody's budget. This particular reel here, guys, I'm using an Abu Garcia Revo SX 10. Now that 10 is equivalent to most manufacturers' 1000 series reels. And that's usually what I recommend to people. Anything from a 500 series reel all the way up to about a 2000, 2500 reel. And the line that I usually put on here is anything from 2 to, actually the max I usually fish is 4-pound test. All right, guys, so let's go over the main rig that you're gonna be using if you are a bait and weight fisherman. It's the Carolina rig. This is the rig that I recommend just about to anyone that's getting new into fishing, and even some of the veteran anglers are still using bait and weight just like this. The main reason why is it is super versatile. You can toss up your floating mice tail, your power worms, power bait, night crawlers, whatever the case may be. It is super versatile, and if you just want to come to the lake, toss out your rods and just sit back and relax, wait for that bite, this is the rig that you'll be using. So first you're gonna need a sliding sinker. Now, why a sliding sinker? Now this sliding sinker is gonna help you toss your rig out to the lake, but at the same time, it's also going to freely slide down your line. As a fish takes your bait, goes swimming off with your bait, this sliding sinker is going to freely slide down your line, and that fish is gonna feel little to no resistance whatsoever, allowing you to set that hook. Your next piece of terminal tackle is gonna be smack in the middle of this rig. It is your Carolina keeper. Now, why is this so important? Your sliding sinker, that's as far as it goes. So as that's sitting on the bottom, that is just how far off the bottom your bait is floating. Now, the reason why I recommend this over a barrel swivel is because if you want to lengthen or shorten your leader, all you have to do is just pinch it, and then it'll freely slide up and down your line. So if you're sitting at 12 inches and all of a sudden you're like, you know, they're probably sitting on the bottom, you can squeeze and shorten your leader just like that. Now, your last piece of terminal tackle for this Carolina rig is gonna be your hook. My recommended hooks when using this is going to be a mosquito hook, typically size 10, 8, 10, 12 is usually where I'm at. Depending on the size of your bait. The other hook that I recommend for the Carolina rig, if you guys are just fishing with power bait, are treble hooks. Different sizes. I don't use anything too big. I'll go ahead and toss up what I usually use on the screen right now, but that's usually what I recommend if you're strictly using power bait. Now, what I've got here, you guys, and you guys know on the channel, is my absolute favorite. It is what I caught that big 23-pound trout on. It is that Berkley mice tail, chartreuse and white. The way I usually hook it up, I'm kind of a wacky kind of guy. So wacky worm, wacky rigging, basically kind of in the middle of the body here. And I like to just kind of let it here and let it dangle, kind of like that. There's several different ways of rigging this up. I think I found a chart that I'll probably toss up on the screen right now that shows the different ways of rigging up some of these baits. Now that we've covered the traditional bait and weight method of trout fishing, let's go ahead and move to the active side of trout fishing. All right, now with this method, you become part of the hunt. Instead of waiting for that trout to come around and find your bait, you are now making your bait look alive or injured, causing that reaction bite. So let's go over the different techniques. First thing we're gonna go over are mini jigs. Now, mini jigs come in all sorts of colors. My recommendation is always have a good assortment of colors. And with mini jigs, think of it as finesse trout fishing. With these guys, you're gonna wanna cast your mini jig out there, let it settle, count down a few seconds depending on what area of the water column that you wanna work, and then slight little twitches. Twitches of your rod tip is what bring these guys to life. Next is the drop shot. Now, drop shot is perfect for those suspended trout. And the reason being is your bait stays right in the strike zone off of the bottom. Now with the drop shot, you have yourself a weight on the bottom, a hook about 10 to 12 inches from that weight. And if you want to do the double drop shot, you've got another hook up here, 10 to 12 inches above that first hook. The reason why the drop shot is so effective is because with a slight twitch or lift of your rod, you are making this minnow look like a dying or struggling minnow. Now, the different baits you can use on those hooks, a lot of people like to use minnows. You can also use mice tails, and you can also use trout worms. All right, so we are here in the lab, and you guys do know I am part of Team Berkley, so we are gonna be covering many of our Berkley products, but not to say that there are good companies out there that pour their own plastics, have their own line or their own dough baits, but today specifically, we are gonna be covering Berkley products, so let's get into it. All right, first let's talk about line. Let's go over my bait and weight setup first. So for my bait and weight setup, I exclusively use Berkley's Vanish fluorocarbon. Now the reason why I use fluorocarbon is because of its resistance to abrasions, as well as its excellent sensitivity for those subtle trout bites. But more importantly, the main reason why I use it is because it is virtually invisible underwater. Now we know trout are primarily sight feeders with really good vision, so stealth does matter. Now real quick, for my jigging or drop shot setup, I need that castability, and that's why I use braid. Now personally, I use Berkley's forward braid. It's primarily used for forward facing sonar, but this braid casts like a dream. Now since braid is visible underwater, I tie on about a rod's length of vanish and then tie my jig or my drop shot. Finally, we have our assortment of baits. Here I've got some of my favorite power bait dough baits. I've got my green garlic, my hatchery pellet, and my rainbow scented with garlic. Now with these dough baits, you can roll them up into whatever you like. I've seen people just roll it up into a nice simple ball, even mold it into like a little football, whatever you like. Some people even roll it up into a long worm, whatever you prefer. We also have my personal favorite, which is a floating mice tail. And this particular is my favorite color. You guys know it's the one that I caught my 23-pound trout. It is the chartreuse and white. They call it Peeps. And also what we don't have here is a night crawler. You can also use an inflated night crawler for your Carolina rig, and that'll work just fine. The last thing I'll say with the Carolina rig is to always check to make sure whichever bait you're using is floating. So what I'll usually do before casting it out there, I'll just float it in the water right next to me to make sure my night crawler, my mice tail, or my power bait is in fact floating, to make sure you have the best chance of success. Now lastly, for you active fishermen, you've got your mini jigs and your minnows. So your mini jigs, the main thing that I like to do is make sure you have an assortment of colors depending on the water conditions, the lighting. Always have a nice assortment of colors. Now you guys fishing your drop shot or double drop shot, once again, I like to use either a size 8, 10, or 12 hook, depending on the size of my minnow. Now with Berkley, we've got these minnows, these 2-inch minnows that I'll use like a size 10 hook, but lately I've been using super small minnows. Now here we've got a 1-inch, and it's perfect for that size 12. I did say I use a size 12 because using some of these smaller minnows is quite effective. All right guys, so the last thing I'll say is have an assortment of colors, and also don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment with these dough baits. Make your own little Franken bait. In fact, don't be afraid to take out some of these mice tail heads or tails and combine it with another color that maybe they don't have. The biggest thing, guys, is just trying to figure out what that trout wants on that day. All right, you guys, so that is gonna do it for the guide. Hopefully you guys learned something, or hopefully something in this video helped prepare you guys for this upcoming trout season. I look forward to seeing you guys on all of San Andrew Lake's social medias, hopefully getting interviewed by Chris, the mouth of Sarl, with some nice trout this season. All right, you guys, hope you guys have a great trout season. I'll see you guys out there.